Cells are very small, so small that you need a microscope to see them. But why are they so small? Why aren't there cells the size of humans? Well, the answer is cells have to have a certain amount of nutrients and materials move through them, and that is hard to do when they are bigger. So for example, if we had a cell that was this big, and we had a cell that was this big, it would be much easier to feed this cell here. And the reason for that is because it is smaller. If we had a nutrient, like let's say glucose, which is made by digesting things like sugar, glucose needs to get into the cell to feed it. A cell must be completely saturated in order to be fed. In other words, whatever the cell must feed itself must permeate. It must go through the entire cell. It must get all the way to the center. That is easier to do with a small cell. You could very quickly fill a cell that is small, but in a cell that is large, certain parts of the cell may be left unsaturated, unfed, and those parts of the cell would slowly be destroyed. So for example, oxygen is needed to support the cell. If oxygen cannot be fed throughout the cell, those parts of the cell may be starved of that and would not function appropriately. And so it is much easier to feed a smaller cell because it absorbs more. Let's consider a plant cell. Remember, plant cells are square, so we'll pretend that these are plant cells and not squares. We have different sizes available here. And as you can see, as we go to the left, we get smaller in our cells, our plant cells. Here, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and in the back, 6 sides. Shoot. 6 sides. When we cut this in half and make these plant cells smaller, we now have 1, 2 more sides. If we do that again, we now have 1, 2, 3, 4 more sides. And if we do that again, we now have 6 for each of these. So that's 6, 12, 18, 24, 30, 36, 42, 48. Why do I mention how many sides there are? With more sides, we have more of what's called surface area. So this did not finish, unfortunately. I have to write this for you. We have more surfaces. With more surfaces, you get what's called surface area. With more surface area, the cells have more ability to absorb nutrients. As you can see, surface area is greater where the cells are smaller. This creates a better what's called ratio. Notice that the volume in all of these examples is the same. It doesn't change. No matter how many times we break apart the cell, the total volume never changes. That is because you could always put them back together and have the same thing. Volume is just the amount of space that is occupied inside each of these cells. However, the surface area does increase. If we start here, the surface area would be 24 over 8, surface area per volume. Here it's 32 over 8. Here it's 40 over 8. And here it is 48 over 8. And so as the cells get smaller, you have a greater surface area to volume ratio and therefore more of an ability to absorb nutrients. So cells need to have enough surface area to allow sufficient materials, like nutrients, to move in and out of the cell.